And hello, movie lovers. Tonight I actually have Abby from Motor City Nerds once again with me. We're going to be doing our Game of Thrones House of the Dragon spoiler review that we've been. She doesn't have power at her house, but that's okay. She's mourning all the deaths that's going to be happening later on in the season, so therefore she's already ahead of the game. So with that being said, let's go ahead and turn Abby into Happy Abby. So let's do this. Hey, how's you doing, Abby?
I'm good. I'm good. Do you know how upset I was that I was like, I'm Miss
Right.
Tardy, and I was so proud this week. I was like, I got my notes, I'm ready to go, and then right a half hour before, I'm like, I'm on. It's the right day. I'm good to go. And then literally a half hour before we were supposed to do our review, I'm like, okay, the power clicked off. It's gonna come back, right? I don't have to tell John and make him worry. Nope. Now we're 2 days in, still no power.
Feels like back in the day whenever I went through Katrina and we didn't have power for over a month or so. So
Oh my
I definitely
God.
feel I definitely feel your struggle.
Well, do you know what I was totally thinking about and forgot about real quick was the 03 blackout.
What's that?
Remember the 03 blackout?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's how it feels up here right now. We're like, it's crazy. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. We're not going to let that stop us.
No, it's not. No, we're not. So tonight we are actually doing like I said, our episode 2 review. This is actually called The Rogue Prince, and it actually starts 6 months after Rhaenyra's anointing as basically the heir. And we actually have Daemon, who occupies the Dragonstone and retains the city's watch's loyalty, while Prince Admiral Carragus Daer menaces the Stepstones at the Haste and the Triarchy. Okay, so yeah, that's what happened in on episode 2. So with that being said, I really have to say I really like the opening of this episode because it opens up to the small council that they actually have. And they're having this meeting, and then there's these ships that are blocking the passage to where they can actually get supplies in, get things going, and stuff like that. So I definitely like how they actually talk business, because there's no war going on. This is basically Genesis before everybody else started screwing things up, basically, if you think about it in that kind of concept.
Right. But, now, a big part of the Stepstones, and like, I mean, you know me, I'll go into like crazy nutso down the rabbit hole of Westeros, but like essentially the Stepstones are like, if anybody knows, like in the real world, like the Isle of Wight, like you won't think that's like a big, huge deal, but it's like this little island before you get to England. And so like, even back in the day, like the Romans used to be like, no, we have to keep this like on the Isle of Wight because it's such an important stop before we get there. And that's essentially what the Stepstones are in Westeros, where it's like, here's the East, here's the Westeros, and then here's this little tiny group of islands where it's like they kind of don't matter, but they do because they'll cause problems with trade and things like that, and all these issues with ports, and so there's always kind of conflict going on down there. But this one in particular is just the East going, hey, let's test their strength and see if they'll do anything, and pay this particular person to cause some havoc.
Exactly. And the thing that I really liked about this, because here's the thing, I like the character in that where he's trying to reunite the kingdoms to where they become a stronger kingdom. If basically the king winds up marrying his daughter, so I'm like, okay, from a political standpoint, that actually makes sense and everything. So I was like, okay, this is actually good. This is someone that's actually trying to help build this king up and everything, especially whenever we saw that he was actually getting taken advantage of in the last episode. So now we actually have someone that's actually rooting for him, which is actually a good thing. And that was actually, let's see here, what was the name of that king? That's the one thing that I forgot.
Oh, King Viserys?
Yeah, King Viserys.
Yeah.
So basically now we actually have someone that's actually on his side that wants to help him. And he's like, look, man, it's been a couple of months. You need to remarry. People are going to wonder. And also, too, that's not going to give you any strength if you don't remarry or anything like that, because it shows weakness.
Exactly. And I mean, I do like that. One thing I will praise this for is they're doing a very good job. And I always say this to like people that aren't movie people or film people. I'm like, no, you can do a lot with just a line of dialogue. And they did that very well with several things in this of saying like, oh, my wife has only been gone for half a year. Oh, Rainier's coronation or announcement, that's been half a year. Like they did a really good job of going, time has passed without going like, hey, stupid audience, 6 months has gone by. And I really liked the way they handled that.
Right.
And it also shows because Dragonstone is such a big deal because if you're the heir, that's why Stannis was at Dragonstone and not their ancestral seat of Storm's End, because whoever is the heir, it's a big deal. Like if you're saying that I'm running Dragonstone, that's essentially giving the middle finger, and they're going, you're allowing him to do that down there for half a year and you're not doing anything about it. And so I like the way they're using. I know we're going to get a bigger time jump, but I was worried about how they would use time, and I think they're doing it very well.
Oh, I think so too. Instead of them just saying, oh, 6 months later, they're allowing the story to take place with the characters actually speaking versus them showing us. That's something that I like. I don't like directors and stuff like that. Exactly. But then you also deal with this other stuff where basically I feel bad for Rhaenyra though too, because now she's trying to find a spot in this kingdom because now she's the heir. It's been 6 months since the announcement of a woman being the heir to the throne, and they're like, well, what do we do? And she's like, well, I got an idea. No, you need to go back and be a maiden and everything because that's where you're at. And right. Then she's like, no, and then all of a sudden I like how the other guy was willing to hear her out because of the strategy, because you know what? She actually makes sense on what the things that she's bringing up.
Oh, for sure. I really loved when, I think she was saying what the audience felt when she's standing there and she turns around and she goes, we have dragons. And I think that I think I literally said that out loud to my mom. I turned around and I was like, they got dragons. What are you doing? And I do feel this way as a whole, that Daemon and Rhaenyra aren't denying what they are. They are fully, it's almost like that scene when Olenna Tyrell tells Daenerys, are you a sheep? No, you're a dragon. Be a dragon. And they accept that about themselves, where Viserys is almost fearful of it. The king is almost like, even in their clothes, you'll see like Rhaenyra and Daemon is in the bright red and the black is so deep. And then with Viserys, it's almost toned down and it's almost like he's trying to hide what he is. But I really like that she just turned around and was like, we are dragon riders. We have dragons. Like, get it together, Dad. And then it's like, you shouldn't be speaking up. But I really liked the way, I think she was speaking for the whole audience when we were like, you got dragons. Get out there and use them. Did I lose you, John? But either way, I will say this: when Corlys Velaryon comes in and he's saying that, and he's like, "Oh yeah, my men, they're being ransacked, they're being harmed." I feel like that also brought back the brutality of this world. Did I lose John forever for good? Did I lose you? Are you back? Or am I messed up? Either way, but I did like the small council meeting in the very beginning, and I do like that they're showing Rhaenyra in this position of being able to learn, but also you're kind of in a position that doesn't matter. But it's kind of her being a cupbearer is a little, but it gets addressed later on in the episode. I don't know if I'm losing John or not, but we will continue, guys. Because outside of, I mean, what were we just at? Oh, Corlys is pissed off. He's real pissed that the stepstones are being raided. Now, like I said, the stepstones can be I'll just rant and keep going about things like this. But the reason the stepstones are such a big deal is because, like I said, they will block ports, they'll block money, they'll block trade. Now, Corlys Velaryon is so loaded. He's like Tywin Lannister times a million. Are we good, John?
Yeah, we're good. So
okay. I was just giving some backstory on like Corlys Velaryon, like the guy who I really loved him immediately. I like how fast this was going when they first walked into the council, and he was just like, "No, listen, this is how it is." And I kept waiting. I didn't know if they were going to keep that from the audience that this guy is like Tywin rich wise times a million. Like he's loaded. So I kept waiting for them to say that, and I was like, the whole episode, I'm like, are you guys gonna acknowledge the fact that this guy is way more loaded than you, as the biggest queen? And they did acknowledge it later on, but I'm like, that whole beginning when he comes in pissed, he's like, I'm trying to tell you I need your help, but you really know I don't need your help. And then when he looks at Rhaenyra after she says what she about the dragons, you start to see who's gonna end up on whose side when we get to the bigger conflict.
Right. And that's something that I really liked. I really felt like that he does show that he does have money without the audience having him having to explain it. Because if you have like two fleets of ships, and you're trying, I said, you got money, you got bank. So that's my first initial thought. And then the other thing is, yeah, we may have money, but guess what? We also have a defense. We have dragons on our side. So therefore, I could actually see the king in a sense. I can actually feel like, okay, maybe he doesn't feel like he needs him that much because of the fact that, you know, the defense is dragons, but what happens if one of those dragons get killed? That's also another thing that, so you need someone on ground, in the ships, in the fleets, fighting. You also need people in your kingdom fighting at all fronts. And that's what he's telling them. He's breaking it down to him.
For sure. And there's definitely, that's the thing, like, I'm such a freak about this stuff that I'm like, I don't want to spoil anything that I mean, I don't know how much they're going to do and everything like that, but I do know they said there's going to be 17 dragons in this. And so there's a lot flying around, and there's a lot on both sides eventually down the road. But there's a lot without, like I said, I'm trying not to give things away without going into too much detail. There's a lot of instances prior to this, like in Westeros, where like the reason that the Martell's words are unbowed, unbent, unbroken is because they never lost to the Targaryens. They came up with a strategy, even though they had no dragons, to keep them at bay. And they were like, it doesn't matter. So it's like there are instances of that happening. And Corlys knows it's not just dragons that win things. And even us who watch Game of Thrones know that. Like, we watched that happen with Daenerys. She didn't the dragons weren't invulnerable. Like they can in fact die. Yeah. And
not only that, but even the Ice King himself used the dragon against her as well. So, you know, that's another thing that you know, just because you have dragons does not mean that you're untouchable. Or anything.
And not just that. I don't know how many people picked up on this, but if anybody who's over on my channel knows, I feel so bad because I had somebody comment. They were like, now that I've watched your videos, I can't not hear you saying this person is a dirty, sneaky rat. And I'm like, dear God, how many times have I said that in that video? But I'm like, there's like I said, I'm trying not to give things away. I'm like, I feel bad. I don't want to give everything away.
This is a spoiler review, so.
Oh, that's true. And I'm just like, there's a few things in this where I'm like, okay, we could go with that, but then I'm like, there's a wink to it. But if you notice, I don't trust maesters. Point blank. Period. No. I think maesters are dirty rats. I think that the high towers are dirty, sneaky rats. And if you notice, when the dragon egg gets stolen later on in the episode, and we'll get to that, they don't call it a dragon. They don't call it a dragon egg. They say Daemon stole a dangerous weapon. So it's like they're calling it a weapon, not a dragon. So I'm like, oh, okay, sneaky. I see what you're doing there because that's a threat, and I get that. I understand. But I thought that was very interesting, and it's really subtle. So I was like, I didn't pick up on it until my second watch through, and I was like, oh, you're like, oh no, he's got a dangerous weapon, and I was like, oh, there we go. Maester's being sneaky, Hightower's being sneaky, but yeah.
Well, we also said that in like the last, and we're going to get to the other thing with the Maester of what they were doing with his hand in a few minutes.
I think you're onto something.
Yep, I think so too. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But here's another thing I want to bring up is, okay, my favorite character so far is Corlys, because of the fact that he was trying to be there for King Viserys. I think.
Yeah, the way that I explain Corlys to people is because even prior to the show, yes, we did have information about him, but it's not like we have tomes of it. But the way that I always describe him is he's like a cool version. Not that Ned isn't cool, but Ned is very stoic, respectful. But if you're like, he was the one who goes, no, Stannis is next in line. I don't care who doesn't like him. He's next in line. Corlys is very much the same. except like I'm cool and I'm like, and like he's still gonna fight for the right reasons. He's going to do what he believes is the honorable thing to do. Don't test him, but at the same time, he's also very like a cool guy, like a cool he's all I want to say Jack Sparrow, but without the wackiness. And so it's
Right.
like, imagine if you took a less wacky Jack Sparrow and Ned Stark and put them together. And so I always really liked Corlys as a character.
Right. But I also want to mention this, though, too, because this is something that I really found fascinating whenever we actually see Rhaenyra going to find a knight that will actually protect her father. And I like how she chose Sir Christian because of the fact that she's searching for someone that has been served in the battle. She's not looking for someone that might be serving the queen or on the sidelines. She wants someone that is right there up front and center, so that way she's ready to do battle for her father whenever the time is right.
Oh yeah, and there's definitely I really appreciated that they showed how political the choosing of the Kingsguard can be, and not just that. I feel like her choosing him, and obviously politically, she thought, and on the surface, yes, that's a great idea. Besides, obviously, you think he's a cutie pie. Besides that, it is smart to choose somebody who has had battle experience and can fight. But politically, it's not the greatest idea that what you just did. And I feel like it's very similar to, but she thinks she did. And then at the end, I feel like same thing with her dad. I feel like he thought like, I think that Viserys is a goober. I just think he's a goober that trusts the wrong people. And I think
so too.
I truly believe that he's like, I didn't think it was cool to marry a 12-year-old. So I went with my heart, and that is politically now blowing up in my face. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to do what I want. But I think he wanted that, obviously. But I think both him and Rhaenyra thought we were doing the right thing.
Right. I'm going to touch on that too, because there's a lot of political stuff that's within this show that I really liked on how they handle it. And even I thought that Rhaenyra choosing Christian was very hasty and went straight for the gut rather than go, okay, what about the others? Like, go through the other men that you have and then come back to Christian. Because you can actually, and then choose between 3 people, not just one person. But I understand where she's going for, like you said. But politically, you not only need someone that's going to be up front in the battlefield, but you also need someone that's going to serve and be honest and upfront with your king, like a concierge, but maybe a step down from a concierge, for example.
Oh yeah, I definitely, and that's another thing. Like they're like I said, I swear to God, it's one of those things where I feel so dumb because I'm like, oh yeah, you want to talk about fake made up world histories? Where I'm like, oh, Westeros, but no, I really appreciate that they have. There's only 2 kings who ever, Robert Baratheon and a couple, and then there might be like 1 or 2 Targaryens that they didn't allow their Lord Commander of their Kingsguard in on their council meetings, and you're supposed to. That in tradition, you're supposed to have them there, and so I like that they've been having his Lord Commander in the council chamber with him because they're supposed to be, and then they stopped trusting them a little bit after the rebellion, yada, yada, yada. So I like that they're involving that because that's a thing. And then having them go to that and show it. Now, did you notice, I don't know if I made this up, but I had it in my notes. Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King, right before Crispin goes out to, or Crispin, that's what Damon calls him later on, Kristen goes out to talk. He looks over at the other guy, and when he moves the like chess piece looking thing over, he like nods to him like he's setting that up, like he knows she's gonna pick this guy. Like I feel like he's making moves way more than I even thought he was gonna be.
I think so. I feel like that too. Like, it's like chess. With Game of Thrones, you have to set up your pieces like chess pieces, and that's what I feel like that's happening with this. So that's how I feel like. I feel like he's making moves aside from, I'm going to let you choose him, but I'm also going to do something else for you instead, since you're being so hastily about it.
Definitely. And I love that they showed my favesies, the queen who never was. That's why I believe that's why Corlys steps in and talks to the king later, is because she's watching from above going, okay, I already see what's going on over here. I see the Hand of the King chit-chatting with you. So I'm going to go and tell my husband. But I really like them showing her, like, I already know what's going on, because she's lived this outside of her being snubbed.
She has the experience.
Been around, yeah, she's been living in the Red Keep her whole life and has seen a lot of things and how the game is played. So,
right.
yeah.
On one side, I feel bad for Banera too, because she's like the black sheep of the family, where everybody's just throwing her down, making her serve the drinks and stuff like that. And then you don't have anyone that's really on her side other than her own father, which she's also being distant with her own father because of the loss of her mother. And she's trying to figure out what to do with that. And then, and then of course her friend is like, look, you need to talk to your father. Even when he's talking to her friend, he's like, look, I need you to talk. Can you talk to her for me? And I'm like, dude, you're such a coward. Just talk to your daughter. I'm
right.
like,
Well, all I could think was, wow, maybe if you hung out with your daughter and not her BFF, you wouldn't have these problems. But I do think that I think that Alicent Hightower was being genuine when she was saying, like, talk to your dad to Rhaenyra, and when she says to Viserys, talk to your daughter. Like, I think she is being genuine in those moments. And I do think that. Now, like I said, I have my own biases towards the Hightowers, but I do think she was genuine about that. But the whole time, all I could think was, wow, Viserys, if you just maybe if you just hung out with your daughter and did some little carvings with her and chit-chatted and grieved together, you wouldn't end up having this catastrophic conflict that's about to go down.
right. But also, too, Banera is also mad at her father, too, because of the fact that she wasn't his first choice. His first choice was Daemon. And I don't blame her one bit. It's like, okay, so I'm just second best, basically. And Daemon was your first choice. Why wasn't I not your first choice? Since I'm your daughter, and I'm also the one who's making history. Even we actually have Corlys that also brings up the fact you have a daughter that's the heir to the throne for the first time in history that broke your traditions. And my fleet is not doing what it needs to do. You need to look at a closer picture of what's going on around you before it starts collapsing. Is basically what, just to summarize it.
Right. No, exactly. No, I totally get it. Yeah. And not just that, like, not only so Corlys, in the very first episode, in the beginning, when we get the Great Council and they're talking about how King Viserys was chosen, they went like, okay, Rhaenys, the queen who never was, Corlys's wife, they said, might be the king that just passed his oldest daughter. We're going to skip you. So Corlys's wife gets skipped. So then he's like, well, why don't you pick my son then? And they were like, nope, he can't be king either. So it's like Corlys has been, and now I offered you my daughter in this episode. And it's like, obviously, they say it. And I thought they did a very good job of handling that, because they could have aged everybody up, which, okay, but I don't think they did it yes, we should all be going, that's creepy and weird. But I think they did a good job of going, like, the king doesn't really want this. The dad don't want it. The mom don't want it. They just know how the world works, and it sucks. But now it's like, you wouldn't even I offered you my baby girl, and I didn't want that, and you still are, I can't take it anymore. And that's why we get the scene we get at the end. But yeah, Corlys has been really shafted a few times by this specific part of the monarchy. Right.
And another thing I want to bring up too is I like how also too Corlys wants to unite the kingdom with having, like you said before, having his own daughter bring the unity between the two houses, which makes sense to make a stronger kingdom. I was like, okay, I'm for that. I'm all for that. The next thing you know, I'm looking, I'm like, wait, what? I'm not for this.
Right. No, exactly. No, that's right. I'm like, no, and I always say this. I'm like, especially when people talk about the original series, and they start talking about, like, oh, why did Robb Stark, why did they make these dumb decisions? And I was like, yeah, and I totally get it. You should age them up in the show. Like, no, nobody wants to see a 13-year-old doing these things. But it's like, in the book, they're kids. So it's like, how smart were you at 15 when you met the girl you first liked? So it's like, that's why Robb Stark is a moron. Like, but when he's 25, it just makes him look stupid. In the book, it's like, no, he's a dumb 15-year-old boy. But I liked that they showed, and they're trying to say something with that, which I appreciated, where it's like, you're a piece of property. It doesn't matter if you're 13 or 25. It doesn't. You're a woman, and you're a piece to be used in the machine of our world, and that's
exactly.
And they did a good job with that.
I think so too. I think they captured that very well. And another thing I want to bring up is this. It's all about uniting the houses and making a strong foundation versus it being about falling in love with somebody because they don't care about that. They just want to build their houses up to where they have a stronger foundation. And that's all they care about. And they're, like you said, just property. But I like how you actually have Rossie. I always butcher this guy's name. I feel bad. The king. I always butcher the king's. Yeah. I always butcher his name. But I feel bad for him because of the fact that he's in the middle. He's like, okay, so now I'm in this position where I have to choose between the middle ground, right? So it's like, okay, this could be like a Red Wedding kind of feel to it if you think about it, because this is the same thing that went down when the person didn't choose the right way. I'm like, dude, you're gonna get whacked. This is like telling Tony Soprano that you're not gonna marry his daughter, but I have somebody else that is a mind to step in that's gonna marry her. I was like, no, this is not gonna end well for you. This, I also felt the same way. I'm like, dude, you're burning that bridge on somebody that's actually on your side, and you could also build your own house. But then I saw the age. I'm like, okay, I understand what you're doing, because Ned didn't really question his own motives. You have a king that's very conflicted with his own feelings and stuff like that, that's actually questioning his own self. So that's something I really like about that.
No, for sure. I mean, I know I give Viserys crap and I call him a goober. I think he is a goober, and he is like, but I don't think King Viserys is a cruel person. I don't think he's a vindictive. He's not like he's not that. So it's like, and I, like I said, I do like how they handled that. But another thing that I forgot to touch on, but it ties in, is in the beginning when Corlys says, hey, this is going on in the Stepstones and none of them want to step to the east. The reason, and that's what they want to show too, not only to the realm, if this marriage happens, did we show unity amongst us and the two biggest houses, but it shows the east that we are together now. And now the reason Corlys isn't scared of the east is because he's not afraid of the Iron Bank. Everybody else is afraid of the Iron Bank because they'll just keep paying and paying and paying to have you sacked and sacked and sacked. And that's like, even Tywin Lannister says we all have to be afraid of the Iron Bank. Like, we all have to be afraid of them. Do you understand? But Corlys doesn't. So it's like, if they would have got together, it would show the East, like, we don't need you and don't step to us. And also to the realm, now the two high Valyrian houses are together and we're the greatest. So it was like, it by all accounts, yes, this is smart to do. Is it weird? Yeah. Does anybody really want it? No. But, and I thought it was really telling when she even said, I thought that King Viserys was genuine and trying to be like sweet when he's like, did your dad tell you to say that? And she's like, well, yeah. And then he's like, what did your mom tell you? Knowing like your mom told you some real shit, you know? And she's like, that I don't have to lay with you till I'm 14. And then it's like, man, 14 is considered old. And I'm like, I see what you're doing, writers, and I appreciate that, because people shouldn't be creeps. But it was like, I thought that whole thing was handled very well, but it's like, by all accounts, it sucks. But yes, politically, this would have been the smartest thing to do worldwide.
Most definitely. And, then of course, you have Brianna, who is actually pleading with her father, but do not marry my friend. And then she winds up doing it. And then it's like, okay. And even her friend was actually put on the spot. It's like, oh, crap. Now I actually have to marry her father, even though I don't want to marry her father. So now
I felt different.
Well, here's the thing, though. If you look at the way that she's looking at him, I felt like that she was more in shock at the fact that it was just like that little bit of a shell shock kind of moment for her. It was like, wait, he's choosing me out of everybody in this kingdom? The kind of thing is what I'm getting from it.
I really liked, I feel like, because I don't want it to come off, because I feel like even when I do my reviews on my channel, I'm like, I just want to preface this by saying I don't think any of this is okay. But I'm like, I feel like by the end of this episode, I don't think she was going, oh yeah, no, I really want this to happen. I want to screw my friend over. I definitely don't think that was the case. And I don't think she thought, oh, you're going to say this in front of everybody. I don't think that was the case. But I definitely think, especially that scene in The Great Sept, when her and Rhaenyra are talking, and she says, well, if you're not going to like, this is where we get to see Alicent Hightower going, I go to the Sept and I pray and I'm a lady. And she's almost like Sansa, where she uses her being a lady as a protection, and it's like, and she's almost telling Rhaenyra, like, just get with the program. This is how it goes. Don't you get it? Just do what they say. It just, and the Rhaenyra's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. But when they're in there, you can see her go. Rhaenyra says, how do you light the candle? How do you do that? I haven't done this in, like, obviously Rhaenyra doesn't do all the lady stuff, and Alicent Hightower does. And there's a little moment where she's walking away and she says something about her dad getting married, and Alicent Hightower turns around and almost kind of like snaps at her a little bit and is like, well, he is going to get remarried. Almost like she thought about it already, and kind of, and this, I would call it grooming is what was going on. But I think that she's genuinely like, I kind of like your dad, and I've already thought about, like, oh, what if I could be with him? And then she reins it in and is like, okay, let's go. And I'm like, by no means am I going, oh yeah, but I think part of her's like, no, I like him, and I'm starting to have feelings for him, and I'm starting to feel territorial over him. And then she's like, oh crap, what did I just say? And because it's almost like Rhaenyra looks at her like, why do you care so much about my dad getting remarried? And it's off. And I really liked that scene when Rhaenyra starts to cry and Alicent is looking at her, because I got the vibe, and this is after I watched it twice, I was like, this is almost like she's looking at her going, okay, I get to see my friend for the last time in this like vulnerable, we're being friends and we're talking, and I don't know what's going to happen, but something big is going to happen, and this is going to change soon.
And I really like that split. Scene. Right, is that split between friends now to where they can't talk on a personal level anymore. Now she has to talk to her more of a professional level than what she was expected to. Now that she's exactly. And it's weird calling your best friend your mom. Right. You know what I'm saying? But I understand politically it makes sense. But let's draw a little bit away from that a little bit, because I want to talk about this. Damian claims the Targaryen seat is the Dragonstone.
Yep.
And he also claimed that the prostitute that he's sleeping with is also pregnant. I'm like, no, she's not pregnant. She's faking.
And I really liked her. She really jumped up in the ranks of people. I was like, oh, I didn't know if they would. I knew she was going to be a confidant of his. Like, obviously, I don't think Daemon cares about many things in this world, but he does care about his family, and I think he cares about her. I think he genuinely, like, I don't know about love, but I definitely think he's like, I like you and I care about you. But she really jumped up in my people. I'm like, oh, I knew you'd be there, but I didn't think you were going to spit some knowledge that I'm like, oh, I really like you now. And she's like, yeah, but don't put me in your shit.
Right. I like that. I like that about it. Look, because Daemon thought that he could actually use his political powers to come back home to get the throne because of the fact that she's pregnant. And the father was like, oh, okay, it's okay. You can come on in and stuff like that. And you and your, I'm not going to say slut. You and your woman.
I know. I feel bad even saying like whore.
Prostitute. I say prostitute. But, you and your prostitute can go on ahead, leave in my kingdom, eat, drink, and be married. But that's not the case. That doesn't wind up happening. Also, too, he steals the dragon egg, which is a big mistake. Yes. Even though, but here's the thing, though. I like how they play this. Now, this is something I really like from the writers and stuff like that. And also, too, I like the wide-angle shots of that bridge where they meet up on. That was fantastic. But the thing that really got me was this, where basically the prostitute's speaking out of turn. And he goes, hey, look, I'm allowed to say this because I'm part of this kingdom. So therefore, you don't talk about that because that's my family. I'm the one who has a say in this, not you. When I need you to speak, I'll let you speak, basically, is what Daemon is saying. Sure.
And I definitely loved, and we're going to get to it when he says that to Corlys. He's like, that's my brother. I can say this stuff. You can't. And that's the thing, too. Is like, Daemon's a lot of things. I like that balance. Daemon is a lot of things. I'm not saying he's the greatest guy, but one thing it is he's like, no, I want my brother to be okay. I want my family to be okay. And that's true. But I did like that she's like, you guys play your games and it's your thing. I play around, I end up dead. I don't think you're understanding that. And I thought they did a very good job of going, Daemon, you might hang out with the common folk and the gold cloaks and stuff, but you're not one of them and you'll never understand what it's like to be a commoner. She's like, no, I get this life. Please don't drag me in. Do you want to have me standing out? I think coming out on the bridge, I'm cool. Being out there in front to piss them off and give them the middle finger, cool. But don't drag me into I have the heir, I'm married. Don't do that.
Because I'm not here for that. I'm only here for your own political gain as long as it doesn't include meat into your other family drama.
Right. The petty stuff, I'm cool with. Let's go have some fun and piss people off.
Right.
Serious stuff, saying that I'm carrying the air, let's not. Because also by taking, there's a reason why.
And I like the fact. I like the fact though too. She didn't know that he said that, and the look that she gives him is like,
"You son of a."
Right.
Yeah. No, and I really like that.
I like how she was thrown off with that. It's like, okay, at first we're mad at her because we're thinking that they both came up with this idea.
Yeah.
And then it comes to find out it was just Damon that came up with that idea and not her. So that makes me respect her a lot more because of the fact that it wasn't brought up from her to do. It was actually Damon's doing that did that.
And I definitely think that even from the first episode, I think they did a very good job, and this just speaks to like chemistry of actors and how well they're acting, but like him and her definitely, they haven't had that many lines together, you know, but there's definitely like a chemistry there. And you can definitely see like, oh, we've known each other for a minute, and to the point where people on the small council know who she is. Like she's been around, and I think that there's a genuine connection there. Like I said, I don't know if we want to call it love, but I think that she's more of a confidant and friend to Damon than anybody is, and I think that's super interesting.
Exactly. So now we actually
can we talk about him smack talking on the bridge, because that was my favorite. Okay.
I love it. The back and forth between him and Brianna was just awesome because Brianna comes in like Denarcy does, riding on her dragon, but she has a saddle, and I don't get it.
Oh, I love it. Oh yeah. I love this. Get ready. Oh, everybody get ready for dragon armor, saddles. These are all things. Oh,
see, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for some dragon armor. But
that's what I mean. There's a lot more like here's a little nugget that's kind of fun. When King Viserys and Corlys' daughter are talking, and she says, "Where'd Vhagar go? Where's Vhagar?" And that's one of the biggest dragons still alive. She ends up riding Vhagar, so that's kind of like a funny little nugget of stuff, and that's cool. So it's like there's a lot more dragons rolling around that we haven't seen yet. But I really liked. I can't get over how cool that scene on the bridge was when they both showed up, when we had Caraxes and Cyrax show up. That was sick. But I loved even before Rhaenyra showing up when Daemon, when Daemon and Otto are talking there, and he's just like, yeah, okay. And then when him and I think that he, like, you can see this is where Daemon has some fun, is when he's like, Sir Crispin, what is it? And he's like, yeah, how about when I knock you down? And he's like, oh yeah, no, I like you. You're going to be fun to fight with. Like, it's a game. And we see both Otto saying, I don't care if your lady's out here and pregnant, and I'll kill her right here. And Damon's like, do it. And you can tell that's another point where she's like, Daemon, bud, let's not do that. But I really love their back and forth. And then when Rhaenyra, that shot of the clouds moving was so cool. That was so cool.
I love the clouds moving. It was perfect cinematography. It cost about $200 million for this to be made compared to the budget that they had with the first Game of Thrones. Because of course, because you're adding dragons and you're adding more of a cinematic kind of experience to it. But okay, so this is what here's the thing. I like the bluff between Rhaenyra and also Daemon, because they're both not going to do anything, and they both know they're not going to do anything, and because they're all both basically like brother and sister in a sense, because we also got the fact that they also talk in their own language and stuff.
Yeah. But I was very interested about that, because at first, like I've been saying, I'm like, I think Daemon and Rhaenyra first off, we've only seen Daemon and Rhaenyra are the only ones that we've seen on their dragons yet. They're the only ones that are fully embracing what they are. So in the first episode, I was like, can all the Targaryens speak High Valyrian still? Or just you two, because you're so attached to your heritage? So when we got to see Viserys speaking it too, I was like, oh, okay, so this is a thing. But them going back and forth in it on the bridge, that was awesome.
They were both calling each other's bluff, basically.
Well, I took it almost as like Damon's like, okay, so you're not your dad. I see a bit of myself in you, and I can respect it, and I'll give this, because he knows. Here's what I was saying.
He knows the boundaries. He knows the boundaries that he can cross.
Damon would excel at YouTube or being a influencer. He's very good with the PR and how I look, and he knows how this is going to look when all of these men go back to their camps and go back to King's Landing. So he's like, I'll give the egg to her in front of everybody. And I liked her spunk, and I liked her showing up, and I respect it. But I'm not going to hand it over to Otto Hightower, because no, that's not going to happen. And he knew they'd come for the egg. And the importance of the egg was Targaryens back in the day were always in the cradle with an egg. And normally the dragon would hatch while the baby was a baby, and they would be raised together, and that would be the dragon. So by taking the dragon egg that was with his nephew that passed, who was the heir, you're really showing the realm and the council and the lords and everybody, this is how I look at myself. I'm holding Dragonstone, which means I'm next in line to the realm. And now my heir, quote unquote, has the egg that the other heir was supposed to have. He was just, essentially, Daemon was just giving the middle finger in so many ways to everybody going, come and get me. And he knew how it would look. So I thought he was like, I didn't think you would show up, Rhaenyra, and I kind of like your spunk, and I respect it. And I'll give the egg to you, but not to them. And I know
you know what, though? I like how he tosses the egg to her. Like, it had this WWE kind of flavor to it. If you think about it, it kind of reminds me of Edge, where basically it's like, okay, I like you. I like you a lot.
Exactly.
Here. You know, it kind of had a WWE kind of moment because he's basically the PR person for WWE. And it's, that's what I got. That's the flavor I got out of it, like early 2000s WWE kind of flavor to the dialogue and the way Damon's being perceived as. So that's what I got out of it. And I really liked when she said that. She goes, "You can kill me right here." She's like, I didn't choose this. I didn't choose this. He did it. If you want to take me out, do it. Like, and it's just like, and that's why, like I said, are some of the situations odd? Yes. But even in the first episode, when he first gives her the necklace, I was like, is this a little, he cares about her.
Is it groomy? And then I was like, a little bit. But I felt like by the time we got to the mom's funeral and the way Damon's looking at Rhaenyra and his brother, he's like, I don't know what I'm going to have to do. I don't think he was thinking I'm going to end up having to get with Rhaenyra. But I definitely think after this one, he's like, no, I'm definitely going. I think he wants his family to be the ones to stay in power. Genuinely, I think that's the only thing he cares about. And I think he realized on that bridge, you might be something big and I respect it. And down the line, me and you might be the ones to carry on our legacy, not my brother and not whatever's happening over there.
Right.
Oh, was that when he had no, that was later. We'll get to that part. We'll get man, Daemon has had some of the best lines. I mean, villains always have the best lines, but I don't want to call him a villain, but I'm like,
no, I wouldn't say he's a villain. Right. I love his lines in this show. I think Damon's my favorite character by far so far. But let's see here. I also put down the fact that Rhaenyra rides back over to the kingdom like nothing even happened, gets the egg. She basically did what a man's job was supposed to be.
Right. And I think that
that
Daemon and her relate on, he's like, he might not be a woman, but he was a second-born son. So he's like, I've had to work for something. I have to keep proving myself. She has to keep proving herself. And I like that her dad didn't even know she was gone.
No.
And I think that was a big thing. Like, what? Like, I just feel like maybe you should know that, Dad. You're the king. Maybe you should know that. I don't know.
Right. Why are your people not telling you these things? Why are the maesters doing the things they're doing? But speaking of which,
let's get to that. Yeah.
So let's get to this. So I even put down macers, maggots, dead flesh to help the king. I'm not going to say his name. So anyways, but basically, I was thinking this to myself. I'm like, okay, so you're going to take maggots to help you with your rotting hand.
Yeah, and I know, he's really going Dumbledore hand.
I'm like, you're trusting this with an open mind. Not questioning, why are you dipping my hand? Oh, sir, this remedy worked years ago, and it helped Master so-and-so. So it will help you. And this will be the finest way of actually healing you. Okay, not a problem. And then puts his hand in the maggots. I'm like, dude.
Here's my thing is I'm like, I think that I was just talking about this. I'm like, it's so crazy the things that people used to do for real back in the day, like bloodletting and crazy psycho stuff. And it's like, I know maggots were a thing, but I'm like, the way you're just shoving your hand in a bowl of maggots is kind of making me sick. And it's really gross. And like, obviously his hand is getting way worse. And I really do, John. I think you're onto something. I said that in my review. I was like, I'm telling you, I think John's right. I think somebody's doing something to the Iron Throne, and this infection is getting worse, or maybe it's something else. I don't know, but something's up. But the way that also, would you really want to have a serious meeting with somebody that you really need to talk about serious stuff And before you lay it on real thick about, oh, and my wife passed away, would you really do that while they're at like their doctor office? You know what I
No.
mean? Like if I'm over here going, hey, John, they're saying that I might have this terrible thing that might kill me in my hand. And you're going like, oh, well, you know, Abby, you should switch your bank accounts over. I'd be going, why are you, John? You're like, that's a serious thing. Like, why are you talking about this serious thing while I'm doing this?
Why do you care about my money all of a sudden? Why are you not caring about me?
Right. Yeah. Or if you were like, hey, can you sign this? And just while it's like, I'm kind of stressing over here, but sure, bud.
By the way, what's your mother's maiden's name? What's your dog's name? I need that for reference.
What street did you grow up on as a kid? What was your first elementary school? Like, okay, yeah, sure. Let me get right on that while I'm in my consultation with my doctor. Right. But I thought it was odd. I thought the one thing that I thought was strange was but then I was like, or was it some reverse psychology thing? Is when the maester is the one who goes, no, marrying the Valerians is the smartest thing you can do. But I'm like, but then Otto Hightower really jumps in quick and is like, oh, wait. I wish someone would have been there in my grief when my wife passed. And it's like pushing him right to his daughter. And so it's like, I don't know how much of that, but I definitely think those maesters are up to something.
Okay, my thing is this. When they mentioned that, I'm like, okay, if he makes this choice, you're benefiting one of the maesters. So maesters are actually looking out for themselves and not looking out for you. So they're like, okay, yeah, go ahead, marry her. This is exactly what I want. Oh, yeah. It's kind of like Palpatine. Good.
Yes. And that, you know that's the thing that I always tell people. I'm like, you got to remember that Otto Hightower and his house are the ones that are closest to the Citadel. They're always chit-chatting it up. If anybody's tight with the maesters, it's the Hightowers. So it's like, that's why I thought it was strange when that maester was like, I was like, oh wait, I thought you guys were buddies, and then I was like, oh wait, or are you good cop bad copping this? And I'm like, but I do think that Viserys thought he was genuinely doing something good when he's like, I won't marry the 12-year-old. I think that's really how he thought, and it's like, no, that's no.
Well, then another thing I forgot to mention is now Daemon actually asked him to go to his wedding as well. That was something else, though, too. So let me get this straight. You stole something from your father, and then now you're expecting him to show up at your wedding with open arms? That's the hilarious thing I found. I found that hilarious.
I love Daemon so much.
I had to put that in as like a little side note because I just thought that part was actually funny.
Oh, one of my side notes is, and this is something that I really like. I mean, before it gets totally obliterated, and we rarely get to see this in Game of Thrones or in Westeros, whatever, is when I almost said Daenerys, but when Rhaenyra and Viserys have dinner together. And I like that they've showed them have dinner together more than once. Like, this is an important thing that this is a tradition that we do. We have dinner together every night, which I'm sure back in the day that was a very but it's like they're like bonding in this episode, and they're really having a talk finally, like Alicent wanted them to do. But we never really get to see that slice of life stuff, especially from Targaryens, because we haven't seen none. But I really like that. Besides the plotty stuff going on, we got to see them grieve over the mom passing, and them actually like giggle with each other and smile with each. And she apologizes for speaking up, and he's like, no, it's okay, you'll learn this and that. And it's like, do I think everybody's the greatest right now? No, but I did like seeing that. I thought that was kind of sweet.
I do too, because here's the thing: in Game of Thrones and the other series, you didn't have time to grieve because there was a lot of battle going on. With this, they don't have any battling going on. You don't have a lot of stuff going on within itself just yet.
Yep.
But they're able to grieve. They're able to have dinner together. They're able to coincide and settle their differences, which is something that I really like. Yep. And it gives you more of a personal level with them to make them feel like they're so real.
And I definitely think that they're doing a good, because we could make these men extremely unlikable very quickly, depending on how they handle. And that's why I give the writers a lot of credit with how they're handling the people being underage and things like that, and these girls being young. I think they're doing I'm just saying you could hate these guys real easy depending on what they say. And so I don't hate any of them because they've handled it well, but they make a really good job of showing that Viserys genuinely loved his wife. He really does miss her. Like he's sad to be widowed. And I thought they did a very good job of, and I think that's why we still can sympathize with him. Because like I said, a couple of these guys, we could be like, I really don't like you. because weird things are going on politically, but either way, but I do like that we don't hate them. We see that they're all put in positions they don't want to be in. But I do think they do a very good job of showing, no, I did love my wife. But I will say this, I got a lot of comments saying, nope, we hate Viserys because that scumbag killed off his wife like that. And I'm like, no, valid. But it was one of those things I was surprised by, because I was like, no, do I think Viserys is the greatest? No. But I was surprised by the amount of people that were like, no, I hate this man now. I hate him. And I was like, oh, okay. And that kind of shocked me.
Let's also talk about like the ending now, where we actually get Corlys, I believe that's his name. Yeah. Where we wind up seeing him with Daemon, and I'm like, this is actually like a end credits, like for watching Marvel movies, where you get to see the setup for something else that happens in the next phase. And that's what I felt like. I felt like I was watching this MCU thing. This episode ends, this thing, and even though this is actually part of the episode, there's no end credits thing, but it feels like an end credits scene. If that does that make sense?
Oh no, for sure, because I felt the same way. I was like,
and when I see Daemon talking in the fire, and he's near the fire, I'm like, I know who he's talking to, because he didn't get this dude did not get the answers that he wanted from the king. So what does he do? He goes to the prince.
Yep.
And with this, he tries to strike up a deal, and it does not work out in his favor that much.
Right. Now, I will say this, and I always talk about this. I'm like, besides Corlys Velaryon just being a great character, he has the best nicknames and titles. Like, he's the Sea Snake. What a cool nickname is the Sea Snake. And then he's Lord of the Tides. And so that's how they got their fortune, is through money, not through obviously money, that's fortune, but through the sea. Right. Yeah, through the sea and through trade, and that's ships and being on the water and stuff like that. So the second we started seeing all the water stuff, I was like, shut up, are we at Driftmark? I was like, no way. Because even to book readers, Driftmark isn't around anymore. So it's like, we haven't even got to like see this, or go there. So I was like, see stuff. Are we going to Driftmark? Are we going to Driftmark?
That's what I want.
Oh my God, it was awesome. And then when they showed Corlys, I was like, oh my God. And the second the camera started moving, I was like, he's talking to Daemon. I was like, he's talking to, and my mom was like, no, he wouldn't do that. And I was like, no, he's talking to Daemon.
Yeah, and it makes logical sense though, because
their talk was great.
Yes. And I like how basically Daemon's like, how does this benefit me? What does this partnership lead to? And does this cause friction within my own family? So he's measuring everything out, while also too trying to figure out Corlys as well.
Right.
And trying to find out Corlys' weak points to where he'll open up to him more.
I was just glad that Corlys stepped up after Viserys announced, I'm gonna marry Alicent Hightower. Not only do I think that was handled very well, I'm kind of old now, but I wasn't a teenage girl that long ago. And that's exactly how you'd handle it. You'd run out in tears.
I have a theory. I just came up with this. I'm thinking that Corlys is going to ask permission. He's going to get rid of the prostitute. I'm thinking that he's going to go on ahead and get his daughter, Daemon, to marry his daughter, so that way he can unite the houses, which is a smart strategy move. Because, okay, the king said no, but you know what? He has a prince. So let's go on ahead and do this deal.
And there's also, like I said, I know they're going to cover this stuff. So I'm like, there's also a son. So there's lots of some marriages. Some marriages are definitely going to go down. I'm just going to say that. But that when like I said, I might be old now, but I wasn't a teenage girl that long ago, and I almost thought there was kind of something romantic between Rhaenyra and Alicent. And if not, I always say this. I'm like, I love
picked it up in the first episode.
Yeah, yes, but I always say this. I love friendship. I think that is an important thing. I don't take the word friend lightly. So I do like when somebody's like, no, friend, this is my friend, and I care about them. And that's still a betrayal. But I thought that Rhaenyra almost cared about Alicent a little bit more than that, and I think that was even more of a betrayal. So the way that she just ran out in tears from the council meeting was like, I was like, no, that's exactly how, no matter who you are or whatever, that's exactly how you'd handle it as a team. You'd be like, oh my God, did this really just happen? But when Corlys just immediately stands up and is like, listen, I am the biggest and the baddest in the realm, and nobody questions it. But then when, I will say this, when Viserys said, and I'm your king, I was like, oh shit. But he was like, no, I know what I'm worth. This is BS. I'm out. And then when they cut to the Driftmark part and he's talking to Damon, it's like, obviously, this is what I mean about them handling time too, is like, you can't just, it's not like today. I can't just hop on a flight and come see you in 2 hours. You know what I mean? It's like, no, he had to travel all the way back to Driftmark. Damon had to travel to him. So some time has passed by the time we get to this conversation between Corlys Velaryon, I think I lost John, and Damon Targaryen. And that back and forth, I'm not going to lie, and people might disagree with me, I think that was some of the best in all of Game of Thrones, anything. I was just hyping up the conversation between Corlys and Damon and how a bunch of time has probably passed. At least a few months have passed for them to meet up at Corlys's place. And I think that their back and forth was one of my favorite pieces of dialogue in this, not just House of the Dragon, but in Game of Thrones. Just their back and forth was is now in like my top 5 favorite scenes. I think I'm losing John in and out. I hope it's not my fault because of my power. But yeah, no. What else did we love, guys? We had. Oh, so we finally get Damon. Oh, we got 2 Johns popping up. Either way, their conversation at Driftmark was one of my favorites. I think that, like I said, I don't want to give too much away, but there's going to be some marriages going on. We get Damon, or we have Corlys explaining to Damon the Stepstones issue going on. And Damon's like, what's in it for me? And don't talk smack about my family. I don't care. And eventually, Corlys, Damon, and others are going to go and handle this situation. And I do think that in the first episode, and even part of this one, we were like, ooh, good, dragons, we're back in Westeros. And we were all geeked. But then when we see the crab feeder, which, what a name, it really brings back how brutal this world really is. And it really brings us back down to, oh yeah, remember how real and brutal this world really can be? And I think they did a really good job of showing that. And it's pretty rough. But I'm trying to see what else I just have a bunch of notes about the Stepstones, and I don't know if anybody really cares about the Stepstones, but I could keep going. But either way, the Stepstones are like I don't want to say what they're doing is pointless because it's not pointless, but there's always kind of conflict going on there. And that's why, like I said, it's a big deal. Like it causes issues with trade and ports and things like that. And you don't want that to happen. You also don't want your people being brutalized, and that makes you look weak. If I run this area and I continue to allow you to come in and just mess people up and I never do anything about it, you're going to go, their ruler ain't going to protect them. Now, if I come out and I obliterate you, they're going to go, okay, she'll protect them. So we're not going to do that anymore. And like I said, the East is like poking to see how strong are you, Westeros? And that's what they're doing. But there's I feel like a couple of people are getting confused with the Stepstones because there's several issues that do take place there. This is one that is big. So the free cities are paying this guy and this group to go mess people up on the Stepstones. This situation is one out of a few, but they're all not the same. And so later on down the road, we have a conflict, which is the Blackfire Rebellion. And that's why if you rewatch Game of Thrones, you'll hear them talking about the Stepstones, but it's not the same conflict we're hearing here. But the last time we heard about the Stepstones was the Blackfire Rebellion, where Barristan Selmy, Tywin Lannister, Mad King Aerys, Steffon Baratheon, Brynden Blackfish Tully, they all like made their name there. So there's several conflicts that go on there. Sorry, I was just going on a rant about the Stepstones.
No, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, no, I just because there's like a few. I know that a few people have been getting confused with they're like, oh, haven't we heard about this before? Because they do talk about it in Game of Thrones, and like me and you were saying, there's always kind of conflict going on there, but this particular one that Damon and Corlys are going to go handle, I thought they did a very good job of showing. Like at first we were super geeked of going, hey, dragons, and we're back in Westeros, and we were kind of like up here. But then when we get to see what the crab feeder's doing, it really reminded us of like, oh, remember this brutal world that we're in? Mm-hmm. That's rough. What's going on there? And so it's like, ugh. So they're going to go handle that situation. But another big, there's other conflicts that go on that are separate outside of this one. So I don't want to make it seem like what they do is pointless, because it's not. It's something totally separate. But later on down the road, there's always kind of conflict going on. That's where there's also an issue at the Stepstones later on, and that's where Tywin Lannister, the Mad King, Bears from the Bold, Brendan Blackfish, they all make their name there in another conflict 100 years later. So it's like, if you've been hearing about the Stepstones, it's not the same conflict as the one that they're going to handle here.
Exactly. So I think that's everything that we had wanted to cover, right? As far as things go, as far as the this episode goes. Yeah. So
I'm just
with
like,
that being,
I think that this is being, I thank you for dealing with my power being out. And I'm just like, I'm really liking, as a show outside of I'm obsessed with this world. I think they're doing a really good job.
I think
really
so too.
it. I'm having a good time.
Me too. I'm just hoping the rest of we are in 2 episodes now, 2 out of 10 episodes. I'm just hoping that they
10?
don't fumble. Yeah, there's 10 episodes with this. So I'm just hoping that they don't fumble the ball like Dallas Cowboys. I'm hoping that they go on ahead and they carry it through. So, so far I'm invested. I'm invested 2 episodes into this this new way of actually looking at Game of Thrones. So I'm actually excited about that. But yeah, I'm having a good time. I'm glad I'm getting you to do this after show with me. I feel great about that.
Mondays, 9:00, Movie Lovers Unite, House of the Dragon reviews. No more power outages. It's happening.
Right, 9:00 Eastern for people on the east side. For the south side, it's going to be 8:00 Central Time PM. So yeah, you got the east side and the south side, and we're going to be doing this reviews for Game of Thrones. Oh yeah, on Fridays we're doing She-Hulk spoiler review. I have Will from Conversations About ... podcast, and we're going to be talking about episode 3 of the She-Hulk. That's going to start at 8:00 Central Time, 9:00 Eastern Time, of course. We're going to do that, and then next week I'll actually have Alex on the show, and that's going to probably be at a little bit of maybe a later time, depending on his schedule. But stay tuned for more stuff from Movie Lovers Unite. Always until next time, guys, thank you for everyone that's been watching. I do appreciate it so much. Don't forget to click that like button. Don't forget to smash the subscribe button. Don't forget to visit Motor City Nerds over there on YouTube as well. Don't forget to check out our audio-only podcast of Movie Lovers Unite as well. And always until next time, guys, have a great and safe night.
You good?
No.